If you've been on birth control, I hate to tell you, but like you've been taking hormone replacement for your whole life. Not Lori, but me.
She says that.
So if you're scared to take hormone replacement therapy, you've been doing it.
And a lot of women are scared of testosterone as well.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. They're like, whoa, I don't want to take that. That's a male hormone.
But most of us have been pumping it in our bodies for 10, 15, 20 years. And then we also wonder why our hormones aren't working.
What is scary, I think, for people about taking hormone replacement therapy is not knowing how it metabolizes properly in the body. That's where if it's metabolizing down the wrong pathway, we can start to see DNA damage turning into cancer. Aside from puberty, pregnancy, and menopause, they don't go off on their own. They have a very clear pattern that they get taken unless the messaging to them is off. So HPA axis, gut, thyroid, if those are off, it's going to throw off our hormones.
What's up, everyone, and welcome to Go Figure, the podcast where we cut the fluff, get real, and dive into everything fitness, health, and life. I'm Lori Fetrick, former American Gladiator Ice.
And I'm Ashley Randall, certified trainer, wellness coach, and your go-to for keeping it real about living your best life.
Here on Go Figure, we're busting myths, sharing truths, and having the conversations that make you stop and say, Go Figure.
From fitness fads to mindset shifts and everything in between, we're here for the stuff you didn't know you needed to hear.
Crushing it, stuck in a rut, or just trying to keep it together, we've been there.
So get ready to laugh, learn, and level up. This is Go Figure. Let's do this.
Welcome to Go Figure, a new podcast series here on Chillin' with Ice. This podcast is where fitness, wellness, and real talk collide. I'm your host, Lori Fetrick, along with the incredible Ashley Randall.
Welcome back to Go Figure. I know I said it last, I think it was a couple of episodes. I was so used to saying Chillin' with Ice.
And I'm like, doo-doo-doo.
I know. We have a special guest today. I actually had her on my show a while back, and just an amazing woman. I love you, Bria. You're so cool. She is all about female hormones, and this is her IG is the Period Whisperer, and this is Bria Gad. Yeah, I said it right. I had to have that Gad. Bria, thank you so much for coming back. I'm so happy to have you. We're happy to have you.
Very excited.
On the Go Figure podcast.
On the Go Figure podcast.
You're our first female guest.
Yes.
I'm super honored.
Yes. I want to jump in right away because something you were just talking about when we were not recording yet about just like the noise, how busy women are, how overstimulated we are. So I just kind of want to get whoever's listening to this right now, like kind of hook them and hope that this can like help them immediately. Tell me what your thought is about that, because I kind of have a theory that, every year we get more acclimated to stress. So then people don't really think that they're stressed anymore because what maybe stressed them out 10 years ago seems normal to them now. So you ask people, a lot of women, oh, are you stressed? It's like, no, it's totally normal to be obsessed with my cell phone, answering emails while I'm giving my kid a bath and, do all of these, taking a Zoom meeting while I'm driving to work. Like that seems normal. But from your, professional standpoint, what do you see that really causing for women?
Yeah, it's such a great question. I mean, I actually, what you're saying there, what I hear is like we're almost desensitized to the amount of stress coming at us. And I think that's very real. But I don't think it's desensitized from our body. Like our body and our brain doesn't necessarily notice that we're not stressed. We have just become really numb to that stress or exceptional at stuffing it places or numbing it. So like there's a few angles, I think we go on, and that's what we're seeing is I think more and more women are either numbing it in some way, like maybe they're, drinking more or eating more food or being overproductive, right? Which is a common stress response. I'm just going to do more to mitigate this. But the body will eventually break down. Like it's not a long-term solution, I think, for managing stress. So, and I think the bigger challenge that I am seeing in my clients and in women in perimenopause and menopause who are struggling is like, it's not about calories in and calories out for our health. It's about energy supply and demand. And we are in any stress on the body, whether we recognize it or not, is creating a greater demand. Now we have this hormonal transition, there's a greater demand. So we're in this kind of deficit, and that's where people start feeling like junk. And so then it's like, okay, if we can't decrease the demand, because a lot of us are in denial about that, how do we increase the supply? Okay, well, sleep. Okay, well, I mean, just go ahead and sleep more. It's like super out of our control, I think, for a lot of people. Nutrition, which was a lot within our control. And then like pleasure and joy. And this one, I think, is what comes up the most when you ask me that question, Ashley, because it's like, how many times I sit across from a woman and I'm like, what do you do for fun? Like, it doesn't
Yeah.
involve your kids or like doing something for someone else. Like, what do you do that's purely joyful for you? And 98% have no idea. They look back at me often, they like well up with tears, like they don't know. And
Yeah.
I get that. I mean, I didn't know not that long ago what I did for fun that didn't have to do with like serving someone else in some way.
I still don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear you. And it's funny because when you were saying this, I was like, what do I do for fun?
You just got back from checking
But
out
I was just
whales
going
in
to say yes,
Maui.
yes, yes. Okay. So, I mean, yes, I have to leave, California to go to Maui for 5 days. And that's my rest, my relaxation. But I want to say more on kind of a weekly basis. It's like just moments out of the day to take for yourself and relax. I used to play a lot of golf,
Okay.
but now that took too much time. That was like a 5-hour day. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, oh, do I have 5 hours to spare? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And yes, I do.
Right.
It's like you were telling me in Vegas, my God, you should be retired by now. I should be relaxing and having
Lori's
good.
like, I don't know, I have to do this. And then I'm in the car and I was like, you're so busy. I was like, what are you doing? Like, you should be retired. Like, you should be chilling. Like, what? And she was like, no, I'm like, okay, she got to make time for the golf. But you saying that is interesting because, and Bria, I can relate to this. I don't have children, but immediately when you said that, I thought of one of my best friends who does. And then I thought about Lori and I thought, I think sometimes things that we do for fun get the lines very blurred because, like, for me, like if someone
Yeah.
asked me what do you do for fun, I would say working out, but I also understand that, okay, but is working out really something that I'm doing for fun? Yes, I enjoy it, kind of like,
I hear you.
but then it's like, but what is that deficit, that it's putting in my body for like the energy stores and things like that? One of my girlfriends, like if you asked her, she would probably say, oh, I would just love to like roam around the grocery store and like look at things without my kids. And it's like, but is that actually fun, or is it just a regular activity that you have to do that is now more enjoyable because your kids aren't there?
Yeah, I think that's very real. And even to come back to your fitness piece, like, look, I'm like you guys. I mean, this is kind of where we've come into contact with each other, as a general love over fitness. And I think it's such an important thing, and it can be a stress reducer and it can be fun, but it still costs your body something.
Yeah.
And so as a long-term solution for fun, if you get injured, can't use that for fun anymore for a little while. So what are we doing for fun? And so sometimes I'm thinking about these stimulating moments of time. And I do think like watching a comedy show can be a part of that, like things that stir up that aliveness in you a little bit, like whether it's just trying something new. Like we went axe throwing for the first time in my life, like not that
That's
long. And it was
interesting.
so hilarious. Like I laughed so hard. I came back and I was like, oh, feels so great. Sometimes it's just like cranking up a good song and like putting the windows down in your car and just, letting it go. Like it doesn't have to be huge things, although I think big things like taking off to Maui or, like can be a great experience. But it's these small things over time that I think matter so much to creating energy in our soul that is like more available to us sometimes than food, especially if our body's not digesting properly or it's having unrest.
So I think a lot of people also underestimate taking care of their adrenal glands because the fact I know you just went
That's such a hot topic too.
It
It's
is.
overwhelming.
And it is very overwhelming. And I remember the first time I went to my doctor and she's like, your body is so stressed out. You're like 90. And I was just like, what are you talking about? I feel great.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she was looking at my adrenal glands. And so she gave me some supportive, herbs for my adrenals to help give them a little umph that I needed. So how do you, when you're talking to your clients about these kind of things and helping them support their adrenal glands and stuff, and before we got into this, you said that there's so much information out there that a lot
Mhm.
of people are bombarded and they get overwhelmed and they don't know what to do. And so they just don't do anything.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, you're
What would you say to helping, kind of support these things to help them with that energy load that they have on a daily basis?
Yeah, it's a good question, and there's not gonna be like a one side. This is where everything kinda comes down to the individual, like
Mhm.
what calms you. Because I think, when you went to your practitioner and they were like, Your adrenals are taxed," like we can get really addicted to living off of cortisol. It's like it's a
Mhm.
great little drug. The trouble is it does run out, and it is
Yeah.
like any drug. Like the first hit is the best hit, and it doesn't, like it never quite gets it. So a lot of people are right now living off of this like cortisol rush, thinking like, "Oh, I'm fine, I'm great, I got this." But inevitably, the adrenals can't push that hormone out anymore, or can't keep up, and then everything starts to sink down. And since I feel like our stress management is like the core of so many other problems. It's like the root cause. So most women who are suffering with a lot of symptoms in perimenopause and menopause, it's because of the adrenals, or because of the thyroid because of the adrenals, or because of the gut because like it's all sort of down below, but
Yeah.
the adrenals are always getting nailed here. So
And now the
I always
other hot topic that came up with that is liver. I
yeah,
mean, it's like everybody they're talking about their liver
Yeah.
right now,
yeah.
besides, their adrenals and all of that kind of stuff. And it's just like, oh
Mhm.
my God, we're just throwing another component in there.
Yeah, but they're all connected. And
Mhm.
I think that's the funny part is that we're trying to separate them out, but
Mhm.
it's like but they're all the same, they're like an orchestra, right? So if one instrument goes off, I mean, they're all going to start playing a different song pretty shortly
Mhm.
thereafter. So I always think like inevitably we have to be able to swing that pendulum back to
Mhm.
almost like I like to think of like treating the body like a baby or like a new puppy for a little while, like we need to have routine, we need to have calm, we need to kind of bring it down, but we don't live in a vacuum. So it's like it'd be great if I could scoop every woman up and like steal them away to Costa Rica for 6 weeks. That's just not a reality,
Yeah.
right? We all have so much on the go. So it's like, how can I create some basic stability and calm in my life where I'm just creating that space? And I mean, like we see this, it's like we're all out there trying to be Olympic athletes, but not treating ourselves like
Yeah.
Olympic athletes would treat their engine, their body,
Mhm.
right?
I love
And
that
that's
you said that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
I
so
tell my clients that all the time. I'm like, you guys are Ferraris and you can be a Ferrari if you take care of it and you treat yourself like a Ferrari, but most of us treat our bodies like Honda Civics.
yeah,
And
I was
then
gonna
we
say a
wonder
VW.
why they operate. Yeah, you're like, well, yeah, you treated it like absolute shit, all of these things. And then you're like, but this whole thing, this woman's body, like this can be a Ferrari, but you have to take care of it just like somebody who has a Ferrari is going to take care of it. Now
yeah.
you're not, but again, I love that you said that because, so many people, I think so many women are just happy to be getting by, and to not be feeling like shit, even though they probably are, but it's enough that they can still function.
Mhm.
Um, so I would guess I would ask you, like, for a woman who's listening to this and maybe again is feeling even overwhelmed just right now, like doesn't know what her symptoms are, doesn't know if she's in perimenopause, doesn't even know what to ask her doctor. Like she's just like, shit, I don't know. I know even a lot of people have a hard time even getting that blood work. So where would you kind of point someone who's listening to this, like, okay, well, maybe I am a little jacked up, but what is like, ugh, like what's that first thing that they can do without a 10-week gut protocol, all of this stuff that they're like, oh my gosh, I can't even do this.
Yeah, it's a great question for sure. I mean, I think that we have gotten so far away from like the kindergarten basics of health. And everyone's out there, trying to go off to college when they haven't even, learned their ABCs yet. What is so wrong or difficult about like most regularly having a regular bedtime and regularly getting out of that bed 8 hours later and regularly eating 3 meals a day and regularly at least just walking, just going for a walk and taking 5 minutes to breathe. Like these are the basics of our life. Like we see wild animals out there. This is what they do every day. They play, they eat, they move, they sleep. Like this is just the animal
Mm-hmm.
body foundations. And I think if we don't have those like as the strong pillars of our foundational health, and everybody should be able to do those things, then we're trying to skip steps. And the body is now a little bit like, I'm 40, screw you. You know? Like, I did it your way, it didn't work, we're going to do it my way.
Yeah.
So you're
So,
saying get back to the basics.
yeah,
Give
bring it
yourself
back.
that moment in time to relax, to have fun. But there's
Yeah.
so Bria, let's be real. There are so many women out there right now. They're just going, show me where I have 10 minutes to do that.
Yeah.
You know, they're
Seriously.
already like tapped to the
Yeah.
max because like we were talking about before, they've got their husbands or significant others and their children and their jobs and maybe 2 jobs, you
Right.
know. And just for us to even say, hey, take 15 minutes
Right.
and move your body in some kind of way to get maybe a little small workout in. Oh, I don't have time to do that.
Yeah.
They don't have time to meal prep even sometimes.
They're attached to the phone. Or again, I mean, I think about my one girlfriend. It's like she's like, "Oh, I want to read this book, but I don't have time." And I was like, "Oh, why don't you listen to the audio version?" And she was like, "Oh, I can't." Like even, I mean, she has probably a 20 or 30-minute commute both ways. She's like, "Sometimes I just have to be in silence." And I just think, wow, like that's crazy to me. Again, I understand I don't have kids, but that's crazy to me that even your commute is literally the only time that you have. And even then, she's probably, I'm assuming, answering work emails or
Mhm.
maybe dealing with something or kids or school. But it's like, wow, you can't even find time to read a book. You can't even find time to listen to the book. Like, and
Yeah.
I feel like that is so many women.
Yeah. And I always I was that woman. So I have a lot of compassion for that for sure. But I think there comes a time where we got to like look at ourselves eye to eye in the mirror and be like, what's my plan? Because if you don't have time to take a 15-minute walk in a day or to eat 3 meals, like things are ass backwards and it will catch up to you. And it is. That's why we're seeing like this massive epidemic, I think, of women suffering. I mean, we can talk about the fact that like there's no research on women's health for sure that doesn't help the situation. We can talk about the patriarchy, all these things. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we have to control what we allow and what we say yes to. So if you're completely overwhelmed, like you got to just pick one damn thing and be okay with the fact that that's got to be enough, and don't expect massive results from this one, but like pick the one thing, just commit, just say this week, I am just going to prioritize. Like, I think there's women out there, and again, all about the fitness. Like, if you can't figure out how to feed yourself 3 meals a day, you don't have any business hitting the gym. Like, it's
Agreed.
like, you just don't. Like, it's got to happen first before these pieces.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I know it's hard for sure. And my heart goes out to them, and I struggle with these things too. But like, we have to have that like come to Jesus moment with ourselves.
Now, you said just a moment ago, you go, I was that woman.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me a little bit, well, tell our audience basically how you got where you're at right now. Like your Instagram is the Period Whisperer. So how did you get to this point to where you're like, okay, this is it. I need to start helping all these women. I've went through this, but this is what I'm going to do. This is going to be my specialty. How did you get here?
Yeah. So I was like an online fitness and nutrition coach for years. And I did it around the lives of my children because I did not want to disrupt the ecosystem of my family. God forbid that someone else had to, be uncomfortable like because of me. And I think that there's a lot of, not everyone relates to that, but I think a lot of women do. And, I did that, including all of the things for all of the people for a lot of years. And then at 37, so I'm 43 now, but at 37, like I could deny this stress, like we were talking about, as much as I wanted, but my body was done. It was like really angry at me. And it was the first time in my life where I experienced real anxiety, where I was like awake in the night, having sweats. Like my body was screaming at me these messages. And I'm over here like, oh, what's going on? Like maybe I should just work out harder. Let me just, push a little harder in my workouts every single day. Let me wake up earlier. Let me, try to cut some calories here and there, which is, I'll tell my story and then I'm going to come back to what, my new thoughts on what like perimenopause is really like for women. But it was my sleep. When my sleep and my period started to like get wonky, I was like, I can't keep going like this. Like my livelihood is tied to this. Like I'm losing my shit left, right, and center. And I went to my healthcare practitioner, who was amazing, did all the things, ran all the tests, and kind of looked at me and was like, Bria, you're the picture of health. And I just wanted to cry. Like, I was so glad I didn't have cancer, which is what comes up when you Google a lot of these things. But I was so sad that at 37, if this is the picture of health, I remember being like, I cannot do another 37 years like this. Like, I just can't. And so that was what I was like, okay, I got to figure out another way. I got to figure out what's going on. And I just completely flipped the script on everything that I was doing. I literally stopped working out. I just only did yoga. I let myself sleep more. I changed my nutrition. And slowly but surely, it took me 4 to 6 months of this, but I started to get back. But in that process and in the research and in the education I did and the certifications I got in there, that was when I recognized that I was just ignoring everything my body was saying to me, like a little evil dictator. I was just, and I think, my thought process around it is so many women in this midlife range that we're in and beyond, but specifically it comes to a head around here, I think. It's almost like our body is in the Hunger Games. It's in survival mode. That's what's happening. And we have 3 choices. Have you guys seen the Hunger Games? Have you read the book? Right. So we're literally we're thinking, oh, my body sucks, but your body's a goddamn cheetah. She's fucking trying to survive, right? So what do we do when we survive? Do we go for a run on the beach? No. Like, we conserve.
Right.
So this is where the weight gain comes. Like, we don't sleep well. Like, would you sleep well if you were in the Hunger Games? No. Like, you're freaking out. Your body's freaking out right now. And we're all like wondering why we feel like junk, because your body is doing what she's supposed to do, which is amazing. Just get on board, because here you are in the Hunger Games and you have 3 choices. You can either be like the rest of District 1 and sit back and watch and be like, oh my God, what's happening? Like, let's watch the entertainment. You can be like the awful president and be like, let's just throw in some awful harder stuff for them, right? Or you can like throw the poor girl a bone and like help her out, like those little parachutes that kind of float in in her water, right?
Yeah.
And why we're so confused and turned around, because I think we're just so out of touch of our body, and probably your relationship to yourself is going to determine which one of those people you're going to be. So I'm more of like an avoidant, get it done no matter what kind of person. I feel like maybe we might be all in the same club there. So
now, why would you say that?
We're going to just push through, right? We're going to be like, let's just make it harder on her, which doesn't make sense. Some people are really anxious, I think, and they get really like, oh, I don't know what to do. Like they get in this big kerfuffle about it. And whereas some, so I think that there's a lot of truth to that. And that's what I recognized in my journey was like, oh, no. Like, we are way too out of touch with our body, and we need to start listening to these whispers. Otherwise, they're going to turn into screams, and that's what they're doing. And then we're now in this other place. If we don't learn to listen to what our body is saying, then we start going to social media and like listening to what other people tell us our body should say. And
which is scary. Scary because there's so many different opinions out there. Do this, do that. Don't do this, don't do that. And you're right, is because you get overwhelmed when you hear too much information. But yet, what's funny is that there was no information about this 10 years ago. And all of a sudden it's like, whoa, we're bombarded with it.
Yeah. Overwhelmed.
Yeah. We opened Pandora's box, I think.
Yeah. No
like,
kidding.
out we came. Here we go.
Which is a good and bad thing. I hear you.
Yeah.
It is. But yes,
So-
now it can be capitalized on, right? It's like now everyone's talking about, so now let's make money on it, is sort of where I think.
Of course.
Okay, so for the woman who's listening to this and she's like in her car or wherever, raising her hand like, yes, everything you're saying is 100% speaking to her. And maybe like you, maybe she did go and get blood work, and maybe her practitioner was like, you're good, girl. Like, everything's fine. You're kind of making this up. Clearly, as what you just said, that's not the case. You have to listen to your body. So what could be the next step that someone could go to? Like, where would you suggest, like, what type of blood work, or how can they know, okay, yes, my general practitioner might say I look healthy, but I can tell something is not right. So I'm either going to drop this or I am going to continue to dig further. Like, where would you guide them to dig further?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think that one, obviously if you've had blood work done and it says you are quote unquote fine, that likely means you're physically fine. And if you're not feeling well, it means you're functionally not fine.
Yeah.
It's a functional problem.
Do you see me
So
raising my hand? I got a
yes,
question
you have
about
a
that.
question. Okay. Yes, Lori.
Thank you. Real quick. Because a general practitioner, when it comes to blood work, if you don't go to a hormone specialist and your testosterone level is between I'm hypothetically saying this, 0 and 50, and you're at 2, your
Right.
practitioner is going to tell you you're within range. No.
Yeah.
That's not normal. And
Right.
so that's why I wanted to kind of raise my hand and say, can you talk to that?
Yeah, for sure. And likewise, like thyroid's another really great
Mhm.
example. Like the range for thyroid stimulating hormone is massive. And the way I look at it is that we have to, I think, as an individual, like looking for your own health, you have to think about it like, okay, if the range for thyroid stimulating hormone is like 0 to 4.5, I mean, we're talking about being like a size 5 shoe or a size 10 shoe. Sure, you might be in the average, but if you're a size 10 and you stick your foot in a size 5, is that going to work for you?
Mm-mm.
No. And so there are optimal ranges that a functional practitioner or maybe a hormone specialist is going to be more aware of. And I think, again, it all kind of comes down to knowing your body, yourself, and listening to what she's saying. But I think, like, to come back to your question, Ashley, you were saying, like, what do we do first?
Yeah.
And I think, the one, I really encourage getting functional lab work done. Now, I know it costs money. It's not going to be covered. So I think that's where you're going to find some really clear answers. But if you want to step before that, it would be to start paying attention to, again, let's scale back to the basics. Stop doing the things you don't have to do and just start paying attention to the messages from your body. Like if do you have brain fog? Are you having digestive issues? Like, are you having bloating as well? Is your period off if you're still cycling? Are we, yes, Lori.
I'm sorry, I have to do this now.
I love it.
When you say like gut health, for instance, now a lot of people don't understand that some of their gut health really isn't healthy. Like if
Most
you're
people's guts are
if
terrible.
you're eating and
Yeah.
all of a sudden you get super gassy and
Yeah.
you notice that you're either taking an anti-acid or an anti-gas on a weekly basis, there's something not happening right. It's not functioning at 100% whatsoever. But I was one of those, and that's why I kind of raised my hand because I was taking anti-acids
Yeah.
probably like maybe once every other day.
Damn. Yeah.
And then I realized maybe I had a little gas and I was like, what's this all about?
Right.
So then I started taking something to actually support my gut health and it all changed.
Yeah.
And I was like,
You're like,
but I didn't realize it.
Well,
That's
'cause,
what I'm trying to say. I didn't realize that my gut health was bad.
Yeah. And that's how I know you're one of those push through people, because we pretend it's not there.
But it's true. Like there's so many women, that are like, oh, I maybe go poop once a week, twice a week. And I'm like, do you actually think, and it's kind of funny, you saying the kindergarten example, because I keep kind of going back to that, what you had said. Like, true, like if you had a kindergartner that they were only going poop once or twice a week, you would be like, that's not normal. Like my kid should be clear. Like, so if we really go back to those elementary principles, like why is it okay for us to now be adults and thinking that that's convenient or like okay or normal? And one thing my functional practitioner said to me is like, so many things are now like common. You can talk to 20 women and they'll all tell you like, oh yeah, I maybe poop twice a week. And she's like, but that is not normal. So just
Yeah.
because it's common doesn't make it a normal thing that like your body should be doing.
Totally.
And so it's like, but then again, I think the women go, and I have been there too, where it's like, where do you start? It seems overwhelming. Okay, you start with the Dutch test, you do the blood work, you do the gut thing. You're like, oh, then I'm going to go on vacation. How am I going to feed and so they're just like, I'm just not going to do any of it.
Yeah. Okay, that's a great question. So where do we come down to these like apps? And so again, I always want to come back down to these like 4 foundations of health: sleep, nutrition, movement, and I talk about functional movement. We're not talking about fitness. Fitness is like when you're ready for fitness, you can invest energy in it. Until then, we got to do the kindergarten basics
Yeah.
and stress management or joy. I want it to be joy, but if you're stressed, like nothing's funny if you're stressed, right? Orgasm if you're stressed, like you can't take a joke when you're stressed, right? So, okay.
Wait a minute,
We-
wait.
you
What does
know.
an orgasm have to do with stress?
It's
Well,
a
I think
stress
for
reliever.
many women, not all women, but for many women, if they're thinking about 100 other things because they're cycling, they can't like let go.
Yeah, no,
Right.
for sure.
Because we're so mental.
Or they don't even, yeah, they're not even gonna, yeah, they would be like, I'm not even gonna go in the moment. Like they couldn't even
Right.
fathom going in that moment. Like, what? Are you crazy? There's dishes in the sink. Like, I can't have sex with you right now. Yes.
Don't touch me. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Then I always think like if we want to get back to like the very, very, very first step, I would always say, okay, let's pick one of these. Pick one, if it'd be great to pick your weakest link, but if you're like, there's no way I'm getting to bed before midnight, Bria, then like, okay, let's not start there. Can we start with every day I'm going to get out for a walk, either first thing in the morning or after lunch or after dinner. I'm just going to go for a 10 to 20 minute walk. That's it. I mean, most people have animals. Your animals need to be walked. So like walk, talk, that's just one thing, and do that one thing every day or regularly until it no longer takes energy. Because I think that's what you're saying is like we get overwhelmed because any change requires energy. And that is what we don't have right now. But these small things are like little investments that will create more energy. So if you just commit to like every day getting up for that morning walk or walking after dinner for 10, 15 minutes, I mean, in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you're not even going to think about it. It just is what it is. And then we pick the next thing. And recognize that it's going to take time for you to feel better, but at least you're not in a toxic relationship, right? You're doing something that's good.
But we don't have time to wait. That's the other funny thing about it.
And that's just a big fat mindset shift, I think, for so many of us. Like we really do need to flip that script in our head a little bit. It's like, okay, well, again, your body is going to say enough at some point. And then what? And you're going to have to do these things anyway and not be able to do any of the other things. Right. So we do have to have that real conversation with ourselves.
I mean, I like that you keep going back to the mindset and kind of just the tough love. It's kind of the way that I like approach clients as well, is to your point. Like at some point you just have to make the decision, because there are, I'm sure, moms that are like, oh, I could snooze for, 20 or 30 minutes. And then it's like, yeah, but you could get up and go for the walk. And the 20 or 30 minutes that you're snoozing, I mean, even I am sometimes guilty of that. Like you're not getting that much better sleep, but the walk could exponentially, make your day so much better if you just got up and you had that time, without the kids, or before bed. If you just, okay, I'm going to shut the phone down, shut the TV down, and I'm just going to read, even if you only can read 3 pages because you fall asleep. Clearly, that's one thing I always hear. Oh, I hate reading at night because I fall asleep. Well, shit, maybe we should read at night instead of watching 3 episodes of TV. What if we started reading and then you fell asleep? Weird. Like
funny how our bodies really
funny how your
really
body's
work.
like, hey, I'm tired.
I know.
I love that. I'm going to change my answer to like, what is the first step, Ashley? And I think the first step that we all need to do, and this is probably, it's going to be uncomfortable, is just stop numbing.
Yeah.
Because when whatever that is for you, it might be your doom scrolling on your social, it might be your, evening wine, it might be the food or the caffeine or the, or whatever, or the TV, binge TV. Like when you pull the thing that is keeping you comfortable, you're going to start to be so uncomfortable that you decide to change. Because I think that's what one of the problems is. And for some of us, for women, a lot of women, it's like, I'm just going to do more. Like that's our productivity, that's our numbing. But it's like you have to be able to sit in silence long enough to notice your edges so that you're edgy enough to change.
But isn't that pretty much in everything that we need to change? People need to get so uncomfortable. I don't want to say miserable, but almost before they actually do something about it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Which is really sad. But we're all guilty of it. We're all guilty of it.
It's like the definition of a toxic relationship, right? You're like, I'm just going to stay here in this thing because it's easier. And I'm just going to pretend it's not there by numbing things. And again, I've been there. I've done it. I still have to fight to do it sometimes.
Yeah.
Like,
So
it's
now
real.
let's say that, we've got the mindset, we're doing the first steps. It's 4 to 5 months in, we're starting to feel a little bit better, but we still want to go to the next level.
Mhm.
So what would you say to your clients basically that now they're in that 4 to 5 month, they started taking their walks. They're not quite there. They're feeling a little bit better, but they still need some more support for their hormones or whatever it may be that's going on. I mean, what is at that point in time, then what's the next step?
I'm a big believer in reaching out and to get help, getting a coach, getting support that way. Or if
Mhm.
going to an expert, I feel like you guys might be there too. That's why you're as exceptional as you are. Like, we all know that you get somewhere faster when you have support. So, I think the gold standard would be like, go and like really know your numbers, like know what's happening in your gut, in your hormones, in your adrenals, in your liver, like know the landscape that we're looking on, so that you're not guessing.
Mhm.
You're just, and then you can get right to those healing opportunities and prioritize them, right? Where it's like, okay, well, where is the real issue starting? Getting to that root cause. So that would be one amazing option, I think. That would be super helpful if you could do that. But I do have a second answer. I think alternatively, like if if you can't invest, for example, at that time, I think taking a look at your soul food is a really good option, because if you're doing the things where your sleep is there and your nutrition is there, um, and you're feeling okay, but you're just not feeling great, like chances are you're missing out on the soul food of your life. And you're going to have to take a look at like, how are my social relationships? How is my connection to something bigger than myself? Like, how are my finances? How is my home environment? Like, how is my creativity? Like, these things that make us alive. And also, I think, remind us that our problems are smaller than they are sometimes.
Mm.
So I think just writing down the things and like measuring a little bit. We all want things without a lot of effort, I think. But it's like sometimes you got to sit down and look at like the whole picture of your life and be like, okay, well, what is bugging me the most in here? Like, do I have purpose right now? Because purpose will fire you up like nothing else, as you know. Or if there's problems in your relationship you haven't dealt with, like these are areas that can be really soul sucking and energy sucking, or really fulfilling and energy providing, depending on how turned on they are. So I
Yeah.
think you can kind of go either of those ways.
I know we're speaking mainly to women, but yet everything you just said still goes all to men as well. Really looking into the soul food, looking into different things because they go through all the hormonal changes as well.
Menopause.
Menopause.
And they should have their hormones tested too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
My ex, we were living together back in Colorado, and kind of some of the very similar things that you were saying. He would come to me and he would say, "Oh, I want to lose weight. I want to gain muscle. I want to lean out. I want to this. I want to show my abs. I want to this." And I'm like, "Bro, you need to come out from the basement at a normal hour in the morning, go put your fucking eyeballs in the sunshine. You need to drink some water. Let's start with that before you're like, oh, let me track my calories and count my macros and this, because it's like, dude, you're not even drinking water. You're not even getting, you're like, let's start with some of that." And then sure enough, he went and got his hormones tested and he looked and like his testosterone was super low. And it was like, yeah, because even though you're a young guy and you're fit, you're not doing anything really to support it except the working out, which is also kind of redlining you. So it's
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
you're not doing all the things I'm telling you to do. And then to make up for that, you're going to work out or do an ab challenge. And I'm like, dude, that's just digging you farther in the hole of the things that you need to be doing.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so, I mean, again, it's harder, I think, to hear from someone, that you live with or you're in a relationship with or
All right.
something like that. But then he went and got his shit tested and he told me, he's like, yeah, they said I needed a this and I should start by just aiming for like 10,000 steps a week. And I'm like, a week? But I was like, okay. Like in my head, I was like, a week is better than nothing. Like if that's where we
Start
have to,
somewhere.
right. I'm like, God, but there are some people that to them, 2,000 steps a day seems crazy to them because they get in their car, they go to work, they come home and they're in their house. And so it's like, yeah, I guess if we can start with that and make those changes, get outside, all the things you're saying, again, man or woman,
Mhm.
I think it's like, let's go back to the basics and then we can kind of peel the hood back. If those things aren't working,
Yeah.
we can see
I
what
love,
needs to be done.
and I agree. Like we all want, again, we grossly overestimate what can be done in a short period of time and underestimate what can be done over a long period
Yeah.
of time. But, and I feel like, Lori, you speak to some of this in your own story, but we like, we have to ask ourselves, okay, well, why are my hormones so low if I go and get tested? And we also need to make sure, like, if we want this magic pill, but it's like, no matter what pill is out there, it's only going to work as well as your body can process it. So if you haven't done
Yes.
the underlying work, then you're only going to get this much benefit, if anything at all.
Yeah.
So like, and this is why I know, Laura, you talk openly about what you take to help you, or what you have
Yeah.
taken to help you feel better hormonally. And there's so many beautiful aspects of hormone replacement therapy. But if you're not detoxifying or you're not absorbing your nutrients, I mean, good luck. You're wasting your money. Like, you're just not getting it. You have to do this work. You can't avoid it anymore.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, you're absolutely right. Because even though I get my, my hormone replacement therapy, there are moments and times I still get sweats. I still get a little brain fog. And that's when I have to check in with myself and go, okay, where am I? Where's my stress level?
Mhm.
Because even though I have the pellets and I'm doing all these things to help, my hormones, if I'm not taking care of myself, it still shows up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But once I start taking care of myself, that's when the beauty comes into play.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel 100%. But I can tell right away that I'm not, there's something off.
Yeah, you can't just be taking your pellets and like getting 4 hours of sleep
Oh,
and
yeah,
eating cookies. And she's like,
exactly.
weird, I'm taking my pellets. Why aren't they working?
I know, right? My hormones are
It's
all
not a
there.
magic pill. Okay, so talk then, because it is a very, very, very hot topic. And I think for some women and maybe even men, it's overwhelming as most things. And maybe scary, oh, I don't want to take hormones. I don't this, like, oh, it's, this injection or that. Can you just like in a very simple way, like just break down what hormone replacement stuff can look like, whether it's bioidentical, just so maybe it doesn't feel like this
Scary.
taboo thing, like, ooh, I have to go on hormones. Like, also, I'd like to remind most women, not Lori,
Oh my
but
gosh,
me,
she says that.
we've been taking, if you've been on birth control, I hate to tell you, but like you've been taking hormone replacement for your whole life. Okay. So if
Yeah.
you're scared to take hormone replacement therapy, you've been doing it. Like,
Okay.
Lori hasn't. She's the rare breed. But most of us have been pumping it in our bodies for 10, 15, 20 years. And then we also wonder why our hormones aren't working. Well,
Yeah.
And a lot of women are scared of testosterone as well.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. They're like, whoa, I don't want to take that. That's a male hormone. I hate to tell you, it's already in your body.
yeah.
Yeah. It's our most predominant sex hormone.
Mm-hmm.
So like we have more of it, or we should have more of it than the other hormones in terms of quantity. So which way to answer this question? I think, I think what's most important first, what is scary, I think, for people about taking hormone replacement therapy is not knowing how it metabolizes properly in the body. That's where if it's metabolizing down the wrong pathway, we can start to see DNA damage turning into cancer. So I am always a fan of like test, don't guess. I'm very uncomfortable with these websites these days where you can just go on and share your symptoms and they'll just send you hormone replacement therapy, bioidentical or otherwise. Because there is, again, so that's one thing. So it's like test, find out, like, and you can see like on a Dutch lab, you can see your pathways, and like any practitioner is going to be like, no, we don't even want to go there yet.
Right.
Like, there's no point in adding hormones to a mix if it's not going to process out of your body, it's just going to cause you more problems. So I think rest assured in that way, like test, work with a proper practitioner that knows what they're doing on those things. But I think that I always look at, pharmaceuticals as like, okay, the absolute last option, that we go to. And there's like 14 steps before that, right? Before we get to that, there's always going to be lifestyle habits that we can change. And then there's going to be like herbs. And then there's going to be, and part of lifestyle, I'd say nutrition, like specific foods that can help promote these hormones. And then there's going to be herbs. And then there's going to be bioidenticals, which are just plant-based, versions of hormones that help promote that in the body. And if that doesn't work, but all systems are clear, then you have that last option. But there's so many steps to take before you even get there. And I believe for most people, especially before they've achieved menopause, that makes the difference because our sex hormones, they aside from puberty, pregnancy, and menopause, they don't go off on their own. They have a very clear pattern that they get taken unless the messaging to them is off. So HPA axis, gut, thyroid, if those are off, it's going to throw off our stuff, our hormones. And if the pathway that they're being told to go down is off, liver, gut, then there's going to cause problems. So we can do like 100 things before we even get to that piece. And then at least you have that as an option, and it should work quite well if you've done the other work.
I love that because I'll just admit, I probably like this time last year, I was having some hormonal issues, some bloating issues, and I went to a functional practitioner and she did the whole thing. We did the stool sample, we did the blood work, and same thing. She gave me the herbs and she's like, okay, you have to start this, and you have, there's some H. pylori and we need da. And there was a part of me that was like so irritated because in my head, I'm like,
You wanted the pill.
yes.
You
I'm
wanted
like,
the magic
all
pill.
I want is this fucking bitch to just tell me that I can take some testosterone. Like, I'm just like, "Ugh," because that's what I thought was the problem. But then in my other head, I was like, but also, do I want to start paying for and taking that all the time? No. So I do the protocol, I do the thing, I take the herbs. It's annoying that there's, you gotta, like, yes, okay. But now I'm like so grateful that I did do all of that because I maybe bought myself more time rather than just doing the thing that but so I get it. It is frustrating. We do think that there's, the magical thing, but it's like, clearly my gut wasn't happy. There was something that it needed. So just injecting testosterone wasn't going to fix that. It was maybe going to make it worse. And so it's like, okay, you do the thing. And like you had just said, it does eventually get better. And I think that's what we're all looking for. We're all looking for that relief to not have to take another thing.
We're so impatient with
Yes.
ourselves.
Well, yeah.
But it's funny, like it's almost like hormones are, because we can't see them, it's like mental health stuff. Like nobody is going to break their ankle and expect to be back on the running
True.
trail in 2 weeks. They're going to be like, oh, I got 6 weeks and then I got to go to the physio. And then
Yeah.
like, okay, I'll start at 5Ks, Everyone gets that somehow because we can see it and touch it. But it's like, we don't seem to understand that it's the same, like a dysbiosis in the gut is no different than a break
Right.
in your ankle, like a really big break, because it probably takes at least 90 days to sort that out.
Yes.
And we just are impatient. You're right.
We are. We're so impatient with ourselves. And it's insane. We want it now, Daddy.
Yes. We want to Amazon Prime, the perfect body. We want to get our testosterone, get our gut health, and be here by noon. Okay, perfect. Send. And it's like, But also, I think it's good to remember that, like, we didn't get this way overnight. This has taken years and years of irregular eating or, hormones or drinking or neglecting, whatever it is. Just like you said with the mental health is such a good comparison. Like, you didn't just wake up one day with anxiety or wake up one day like, oh, how did I, like, all of these things have been building. And then, your body's like, hi, this needs to be addressed because things are shutting down. There has been an overload.
Well, it's like in our fitness and bodybuilding and if any kind of sport that you're doing, you're practicing constantly for that big game, and it's like our bodies are in this mode of practice, go, 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 go. And we're not even thinking about it if you think about
Right.
it. If you think about it and not think about it. And because you're on this pathway. But when it comes to our hormones, we want it now. We want it fixed now.
Yeah.
And we don't realize that this is a conversation that, yes, it's very loud right now. And there's a lot of information out there. But now it's time for us to sit back, sit in it, lean into it, and figure out what our first step that we need to take with our body is before we jump into, some people will just jump into taking herbs right away,
Right.
And they don't even know what the herbs are. They're like,
sure.
well, somebody said to take them. I'm just going to take them. It'll make me feel better. Do a little research.
Yeah.
Get to know your body. And that's really
Yes.
what it is get to know your body and listen to what it's telling you and what it needs.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay, Bria, what are some things that if someone wants to reach out to you, if they want to work with you, if they're like, okay, I need more of this, tell the women, men listening how they can get in contact with you.
Thank you. You can check out my website, briatheperiodwhisperer.com. I'm going to say it slowly because last time I said it quickly and Lori's like, slow down. Or you can check out the Period Whisperer podcast anywhere you get your podcasts. That's where I dish more deeply on this twice a week.
Love that. Love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I love having you. I love sitting
you.
here and like I said before, we could sit and talk for hours about this,
Yeah.
you know,
I
because there's
totally
so much
agree.
information and
Yeah.
it's such
Always
valuable
cool
information.
to hear what other people, their experience and what they've been saying. Like I've learned so much just from you guys. So thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you. And I
Thanks
think
for
the
having us
biggest
on.
takeaway is just keep it simple. Like
Yeah.
truly, like start with, I mean, I love your suggestion with that. It's like just take an inventory of where you're at, what is your lifestyle, and then go a little deeper. There's not always a magic pill, even though we want there to be one.
Yeah. Get out of the Hunger Games.
Did you just recently watch that or
Yeah.
something?
I know she knows the plot so well. She's like, District 1.
Yeah, you know what? I'd been thinking about it a lot. Like when more and more, when I'm looking at my clients' labs and I'm talking to them about their experience and I'm getting messages from, people in my DMs, I'm like, your poor body
Yeah.
is doing her damn best. Like just throw her a bone.
Throw her
And
a
it just,
bone.
I think I just started thinking metaphors are how I learn. So it just helped.
I think we all
works.
do. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Bria, thank you so
Yeah.
much for coming on Go Figure today.
Thank you.
I mean, we're going to have you back.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Can't wait. Thank you guys so much. And I would love to hopefully see the two of you on the Period Whisperer sometime.
Let's do it.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Name of the day.
Yes.
All right, girl. Have a wonderful week. And thank you again so much.
Thank you.